He was always different than every member of Congress. Everybody knew what he had done. He was John Lewis.
We're marching today to dramatize to the world that hundreds and thousands of Negro citizens denied the right to vote.
Congressman Lewis gave us the blueprint to organize and to legislate.
The reason why he's effective as a leader is because he's lived it.
We made a decision to march in an orderly, peaceful, nonviolent fashion from Selma to Montgomery.
You are ordered to disperse. This march will not continue.
I was hit in the head. My knees went from under me. I thought I was going to down the bridge.
If John Lewis, as a 19, 20-year-old, wasn't doing what he did, I would not be here.
We will march with the spirit of love and with the spirit of dignity that we have shown here today.
Hey everyone, Rick Hong here for Hollywood First Look Features. We've got Don Porter, the director of John Lewis, Good Trouble, with us. And I wanted to say, Don, if it weren't for my setup, I would give you a standing ovation right now because...
You can do it. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, can you tell me about your thoughts and emotions? Because it's almost frightening how timely your documentary, something you started years ago, is right now.
Yeah. You know, I could never have imagined that this moment would be this moment. When I started, it was this, partnership with CNN, and the idea was really to give a tribute to a living, legend. And
yes,
what I really wanted to do was to talk about the fact that John Lewis is still working and protesting and legislating, and the kind of motivating question for me was, where do old civil rights leaders go? What do they do with all of that history and knowledge? And then, so we kind of wanted to place him in the present and then fill in some of the past that maybe wasn't as familiar to people. So that's why we went on this deep archival search and, kind of just got lost in that time period. But that was really the goal, is to make the point that he's still, that the fight for our rights is not a fight with an end. It is a continuation. And you're right that, we're experiencing that so deeply in this time period, but particularly this last week.
What I really enjoyed about your film is, you're documenting somebody now, but you had so much footage from back then to say wow, this person has been relevant for this long, and the fight still goes on.
That's exactly right. And the thing about John Lewis that usually surprises people is he's very quiet in person. He's a very soft-spoken, person, but he's also really funny. He's really a person who lives life and loves life. He loves to dance. He loves music. He loves art. He's a very full life. But the thing that struck me about him is, so we started filming before the 2018 election.
Right.
And so, this thing or that thing would happen with He Who Shall Not Be Named. And I would say, Mr. Lewis, I'm so upset about this. I'm so upset about that. And, he was always comforting me. I'm like, how is John Lewis comforting me? And telling me, to be patient, but firm, and he would tell a story about something. So it really kind of, for me, became this conversation with him, and it actually was kind of like, how do I keep going? How do I live my life with these things, and him, there's just something, he's so confident that the right is gonna work out. He's so confident in that.
That's great.
But it's hard to challenge that with what he's seen and lived through. And he's confident about that today. I think more of us are shocked and surprised by what we see because we haven't really lived it the same way that he has. And he's lived it on both sides. He's seen us come through it. And so I think that he has a confidence that many of us don't have the luxury of having right now.
Does it take a lot of convincing to say, I would like to do a documentary about you? Or was he on board to say, there is a message, yes, I think that you can bring the truth to who I am and what I'm about?
You know what's so funny is I don't even remember asking him. It was like we just started scheduling interviews.
Great.
I mean, I think he was ready. You know, I think too often these films come out after a person has passed on. And I think he had something to say. It was right before, you know, the midterms, which is like his superpower time. I mean, he was just like so active and so in the middle of everything. And I think that he appreciated the work I'd done in Bobby Kennedy for President, the series I did for Netflix, where he was like the star of that show, you know, and he told a story then about, he was the person who organized the rally for Bobby Kennedy on the night that Martin Luther King was murdered. And, you know, the white advisors were saying, it's too dangerous, Kennedy. You can't speak to this crowd. They're going to riot. And Kennedy and Lewis said, you must speak to them. They must know that someone hears them and feels their pain and is listening. And Kennedy spoke to the crowd in Indianapolis that night, and that's one of the only cities that didn't burn. And, you know, what about that lesson today? What if we had a leader who was saying, I hear you. I know what you feel, and I will work with you, but I am listening. So, you know, to talk about timely, I mean, that as much as anything. So, you know, knowing, I think I was kind of swimming in that era. And so it was a very natural progression for me to go from Bobby Kennedy 50s, 60s to go to John Lewis 60s into today.
Everybody, please, if you care about what's going on in society, please go watch John Lewis, Good Trouble, coming out July 3rd. Don, thank you so much.
The whole time he was in the movement, it was frightening, knowing the danger, knowing what could happen.
You cannot replace a John Lewis.
He's the most courageous person I ever met.
Too many people struggled and died to make it possible for every American to exercise their right to vote.
He challenges the conscience of the Congress.
Bring common sense gun control legislation to the House floor.
40 years later, John Lewis continues to inspire us.
Are you with me? Let me hear you. 3 civil rights workers that were murdered for trying to help people get registered to vote are looking down on us.
This is a time for action. That's what I learned from John Lewis.
There are forces in America today want to take us back, but we're not going back. We're going forward.